what you can't explain. It's coming back again. I can see it now, I can see it now. What you can't explain, coming back again.
Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel and thank you for joining me for another coffee and crime time. So this case is ongoing, it's developing, and it's wild. It's a very strange case because there's a lot going on here that doesn't add up. And I'm going to try to be as unbiased and fair as possible, but I am going to be honest with you that I am leaning a certain way, and based on the information, based on what's going on, I have my opinions and I have my beliefs about what happened, but I could be totally off base. I really can't wait to get your guys' opinion on everything. This has been requested of me to cover, and I've been waiting for a little bit more to come out. I've been waiting for, some more information, some more people to speak, which has happened. But yeah, I've been getting requests on Instagram and email and even TikTok. I've been tagged a lot on TikTok, and you'll see why, because this is a case that sort of involves TikTok heavily. So let's just sort of get started, and then we'll see what we see, and then we can kind of discuss it in the comment section and try to figure out what's going on here. So in the early morning hours of February 20th, 2025, a 6-year-old girl walked into her parents' bedroom expecting to find her mother awake. What she found instead was a nightmare. Her parents, Kristen and James Brock, had been shot to death in their bed. Their bodies were cold, their home undisturbed, and the killer seemingly vanished without a trace. As the hours ticked by, suspicion began to swirl, but it wouldn't be burglars, drug dealers, or vengeful enemies the community would come to fear. No, the horror was much closer to home. Just days after the murders, Kristen's 16-year-old daughter, Sarah Grace Patrick, took to social media with raw emotion, crying on TikTok, begging for justice, even reaching out to true crime creators to tell her family story. She crafted the perfect picture of a grieving daughter until investigators began to peel back the layers. Now, Sarah is behind bars, charged with the murders of her own mother and stepfather. This case is still so new and developing. There are still so many new details and updates coming out regularly. So let's talk about what we know so far, try to wrap our heads around what happened here. And this is obvious. I don't think it needs to be said, but I clearly don't know what happened. There are people out there who say that everyone is jumping the gun, blaming Sarah for this when we don't have all the details. Well, she was arrested and charged with murder, so I don't think that it's jumping the gun once an arrest is made, because the police clearly felt and still feel that they discovered enough evidence during their investigation to put out a warrant for this teenager's arrest. In fact, they described it as mountains of evidence that they have, and I have a sneaking suspicion that the truth is much darker than any of us can even imagine. As soon as I started watching Sarah's TikToks, I immediately thought of a person we have talked about before in relation to another case, Michelle Carter. For those of you who know, you know. For those of you who don't, I'm going to explain who Michelle Carter is and why this case made me think of her towards the end of the video. But we have a lot to go through today, so let's get started. But first, let's hear about the sponsor of today's video, HelloFresh. Today's video is sponsored by HelloFresh, which means I finally get to talk about the one mystery I've actually solved. What's for dinner? Cooking every night can feel like a full-time job on top of your actual full-time job. But with HelloFresh, it's like future me left me a gift at the door. Fresh ingredients, pre-portioned, easy to follow recipes, no trips to the grocery store where I inevitably become overstimulated and then forget the one thing I actually needed. Again, I do really love the recipe cards that HelloFresh sends, because not only do they give you step-by-step instructions along with pictures, but they include beautiful photos of the finished products so you know how close or how far you are from creating the meal like a real chef. But even if your food doesn't resemble the picture at all, because mine never does, I do ADHD cooking, which means a lot of throwing throwing things around and forgetting things, it still always tastes amazing. These recipes are literally impossible to mess up, even if you're me. And the HelloFresh meals come with seasonal produce, high quality proteins, and even healthy modifications like lettuce wraps, double veggies, or calorie smart swaps. So you can eat like a grown up without having to plan like one. You don't even have to act like a grown-up if you don't want to. And if you don't, that's even better in my opinion, and we should chaotically cook together to add to our fun. And if you're short on time, aren't we all? HelloFresh has 15-minute meals and oven-ready options that save you when life is chaotic. The case research is heavy, or your child just looked at you and said, "What's for dinner?" with zero intention of helping. But my kids actually do really love to help prepare the HelloFresh meals because there's so little mental work having to be done on my part that I can truly relax and lean into it and have fun with it, knowing that we have all the ingredients and easy to follow instructions, and my kids will be more likely to eat something they helped prepare. In fact, I have somebody here, because it's Bring Your Child to Work Day, I guess, who can verify what I just said. It's Bella. Bella, you like cooking with HelloFresh?
Yeah, it's so fun. Bonus, that's really yummy.
It's really yummy. You like how it tastes?
Yes.
Yeah. Do we have fun?
Yeah.
Do we laugh?
Yeah.
Do we throw food at each other? Have you learned to chop vegetables because of HelloFresh?
Yes.
And you're safe?
Yes.
Yeah. And you love it?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. And right now, you too can take advantage of HelloFresh's incredible offer by using my code stephanieharlowe FM for 10 free meals plus free add-ons for life. That's one free item in every box as long as your subscription's active for life. Free meals get applied as a discount to your first box. New subscribers only. Offer varies by plan. Click the link below or use code stephanieharlowe FM at checkout. Seriously, HelloFresh has made dinner something I actually look forward to, and it saves me money. The only mystery left, how they made cleanup this easy. Thank you so much to HelloFresh for sponsoring today's video. Want to say bye?
Yeah. Bye.
Let's dive into today's case. So to start off, I'm going to give you a little background about the victims, and all of it's important. All of it is important to what we're going to talk about later. This isn't going to be background as in, oh, the people who knew them said they lit the room up when they walked in, that kind of stuff. This is very relevant background to what we're going to talk about later. So 41-year-old Kristen Brock and 45-year-old James Brock lived at 1531 Carrollton Tyus Road in Carrollton, Georgia. And from what I can tell from reports, the couple had been together for about 10 years, and they'd officially gotten married on December 12th of 2023. Now, the timing of how long they've been together, et cetera, we're going to talk about that later too, because there seems to be discrepancies here. But they were raising 3 children together. 2 of the children were Kristen's from a previous marriage, and 1 child was the daughter that Kristen and James shared. And James struggled with some health issues. According to Kristen's father, Dennis Nolan, he was awaiting a heart transplant at the time of his death. And it was revealed that James also used an LVAD device. And a look through Kristen's Facebook does confirm that in July of 2021, James was hospitalized, and it seemed very serious. It seemed very touch and go at times, at least according to Kristen's Facebook updates. We are going to talk about that in a moment, but first I want to explain a little bit about James's heart condition and the LVAD device, because the LVAD device is going to come into play later. And I want to try to figure out why James may have needed this. And there's only really a few reasons somebody might need an LVAD. So an LVAD is a mechanical pump that is surgically implanted into the chest, and it helps circulate blood from the left ventricle of the heart to the rest of the body. And a person would need this device if their heart's left ventricle, which is the main pumping chamber, it can't pump enough blood to meet the body's needs. And this typically happens in end-stage heart failure. So it's kind of a last resort. Like, we know that James was waiting on a heart transplant, so we can assume that he was using the LVAD to keep him alive and to keep his heart functioning while waiting for an organ donor. Now, on July 25th, 2021, Kristen posted a picture of James in a hospital bed, and she asked everyone to pray, stating that he wasn't doing well at all and, begging for him to pull through. Under that post, there were, of course, people wishing James well, asking what had happened, and a comment from someone who appears to be James's sister, and she said, quote, "So many stories about what happened to my brother. If he wakes up, I'll know the truth. Pray he wakes up and tells me, please wake up," end quote. So Kristen replied back to this person in 3 separate replies. Quote, "I wish I had answers, but he was so mad and sad. He will wake up. Sometimes it's not for me to say. You have to hear it from him," end quote. James's sister replied back, quote, "Only you and Jamie know exactly what happened, and he's not able to tell me, so only you know. I just wish I knew. If you know more, please tell me," end quote. And you'll find that as we go through this video, James Brock is often called Jamie by his close friends and family. The people who knew him, his nickname was Jamie. So Kristen posted updates under this post saying he had taken a turn for the worse and asking everyone to keep praying so they didn't lose him. She eventually posted that he was awake and that he was talking and trying to get out of the hospital. But then she also posted saying, quote, "No more updates because I'm getting off Facebook. I've had enough criticism from everyone. Thanks for the support. Jaylee and I are going to be all right and wait for daddy to come home. As for all the others, true colors shown," end quote. Jaylee is the daughter that James and Kristen shared. So it seems there was some tension coming from some individuals, but Kristen did not name names. Now, the following day, Kristen posted that James did not have a good night and he was on full life support. And then on July 27th, Kristen posted a picture of herself and Jaylee, the daughter she shared with James, and wrote a very long caption, quote, "All I will say about James, PM me for updates, and to all of you showing your true colors, I pray for y'all when he wakes up. He's gonna be pissed. No names, but how dare you say the things that were said? How dare you call my ex? How dare you say this is my fault, and how dare you tell me he hates me? I don't need it or want it. Leave me alone, and I'll let Jamie deal with y'all when he wakes up. I will be by my man until the end of time, so believe me when I say I'm done with all of you. As for Jamie, he will decide when he wakes up. My soul hurts so bad." And then friends, so-called friends and family, say the words they have said to me. God bless y'all. I pray for every one of you as I let him know when he heals. You know he's going to be mad. That's all. I'm out Facebook. Y'all are the ones that pushed me here to go silent. Lord, have mercy on your souls for the hurt y'all have brought us. Jaylee and I will be waiting on daddy to get home. End quote. So something was going on there, and I have speculations based on other information, and we will come back to it. I also want to say that it was clear to me that both James and Kristen were very devoted to each other and to their children. There were constant posts and pictures on both their Facebook profiles talking about their kids, how proud they were of them, how much they loved them. I'm talking about all the kids, right? James would post pictures of, yes, his daughter with Kristen, but also Kristen's 2 kids, her daughter Sarah and Sarah's brother. Another thing to know about James and Kristen Brock is that they were very religious and they were very active in their church, the Catalyst Church in Carrollton. Now, Carrollton is the county seat of Carroll County, located about 45 miles west of Atlanta, Georgia. So they were very religious, very active in their church, but this was a newer development. There were rumors and talks that maybe both James and Kristen, or just James or just Kristen, had some issues prior to this, to them becoming active in the church, with drugs, maybe with being on the wrong side of the law, just some issues that had set them astray in life. And they had returned to their path and they were working together to, be better. And they had joined the church and they were born again. And they were very, very active in their church community for at least a couple of years by this point. So February 20th, 2025 was a Thursday, and 16-year-old Sarah Grace Patrick called 911 around 7:15 a.m. to report that her mother and stepfather had been shot to death in their bed. According to Dennis Nolan, who would be Sarah's grandfather and Kristen's father, he spoke to a local news outlet, and he said the couple's 5-year-old daughter, Jaylee, had discovered the bodies of her parents. He said that the young girl had gone into the bedroom thinking her mother would have been awake by that time, but when she touched her mother's hand, Jaylee discovered that Kristen was ice cold. And I mean, you guys know this is devastating. A 5-year-old, and no child should have to find their parents like this, much less a child that young. You know, you're running into your mother's room, your mother and father's room. You want to get them up so you can start your day. You're excited to see them, have them smile at you, give them a hug, and they're both dead. And apparently it was a pretty bad crime scene because they were both shot multiple times. So Dennis Nolan said that when Jaylee realized her parents were deceased, she called 911. And this is something that Sarah Grace Patrick, who's Jaylee's older sister, she would correct this in a post that she used her biological father's Facebook account to share. Sarah claimed that what her grandfather had said was mostly correct, but that Jaylee had gone and woken Sarah up after she found the bodies of her parents. And it was Sarah who had confirmed that they were dead and then called 911. Law enforcement noted several things upon their arrival to the scene. They saw that nothing was missing in the house. They saw that there was no signs of forced entry, no signs of a break-in or a robbery, and they did not locate a weapon at the scene. This is important. Dennis Nolan said, quote, "If there was something they wanted in the house, they could have taken it. They probably wouldn't have even woken up, but for some reason they wanted them dead, and I want to know why," end quote. Investigators spent that Thursday collecting evidence from the house, talking to neighbors, collecting surveillance video, I assume from Ring doorbell cameras, security cameras, cameras in the neighborhood. We're also going to find this was a very, very rural area, so the Brocks didn't have a ton of close neighbors. The Carroll County Sheriff's Office announced that they were conducting a double homicide investigation due to the fact that no weapon had been located at the scene. And this was kind of on the heels of, people in the area, people on the media sort of wondering, hey, was this a double murder, or was this someone took their own life after taking the life of their partner situation? And so the police are clearing this up and they're saying, no, we're definitely looking into this as a double homicide because the weapon is not there. And if this had been a taking your own life and then taking someone else's life situation, obviously you wouldn't have been able to get rid of the weapon. So this is a double homicide investigation. And Ashley Halsey, the department's communications director, announced, quote, "We're not ruling anything out, but it doesn't appear that there was forced entry into the home, although one of the doors was left ajar when they were found yesterday morning," end quote. So we know the people in the house at the time of the murders would have been obviously James and Kristen Brock, and then Kristen's 16-year-old daughter, Sarah Grace Patrick, who was living with them, and then James and Kristen's 5-year-old daughter, Jaylee. Now, remember I said Kristen has another son from a previous marriage. That son was with his father that night. Kristen's father, Dennis Nolan, told the media, quote, to come in their home while they're sleeping and to kill both of them with 3 children and leave them parentless. It's just so hard, end quote. Yes, that is very hard. I mean, technically, Kristen's 2 kids, Sarah and Sarah's brother, wouldn't be parentless because they have a biological father. But yes, Jaylee is completely parentless at this point, and she's so young, and it's very, very sad.
Well, since the shooting, Carroll County deputies have been at the home nonstop trying to piece together who killed that couple.
He told me they're going to, if they have to turn over every blade of grass in the yard, they're going to do that to find something to go by.
Right now, the Nolan family is offering up to a $5,000 reward for any information that leads to an arrest and conviction.
Okay, now we have to talk about Sarah's behavior after the murders. And remember, Sarah Grace Patrick is Kristen's 16-year-old daughter. She would have been James's stepdaughter. So first, Sarah started posting things on Facebook, and she posted them on the Facebook account of Donnell Patrick, her biological father and the first husband of Kristen Brock. On February 24th, 2025, Sarah posted a news report about what had happened to her mother and stepfather, and she wrote a few paragraphs explaining that this article that her grandfather had given an interview to, they'd gotten everything mostly right, except for the fact that she'd been the one to call 911 after her sister had woken her up. She also said, quote, "I won't go into further details, but I know there are things on the news that are not true, but the rumors and assumptions do not help unless you contact the police about it. However, I trust in God to make this right, and I know He will, and the truth will all come out in the end. If you know something, please, please, please speak up. I beg of you, because this split me and my sister up after such a traumatic day none of us deserved. My animals have to find a new home. My home is gone, and I can't even get my wallet or clothes or anything, even Bible. I lost my sense of safety, and most of all, they took my mother and my stepdad that was there when my amazing father couldn't be. It's been horrific, and I would like if people would hug their family extra long after you see this. I wish I got up and hugged her when I said goodnight. You never know how much you'll regret not doing it until it's too late. I pray for whoever did this, but this was not right, and I need answers why. But until then, I'm going to put my trust in God to take care of them in heaven and watch over me and my loved ones." End quote. Sarah's father, Donnell Patrick, also posted that day, putting up a photo of a text message exchanged he had shared with Kristen, apparently regarding their son. And he wrote, quote, "Never thought this would be the last time we would be making plans, picking the kids up. I will come home on Mondays and cry when the kids were not here. I really wish that was the case today. I'm so sorry for taking these little things for granted." End quote. I think he meant I would come home on Mondays and cry because the kids weren't here, because that appears to be when Kristen had Sarah and her brother. So I think Donnell was saying in the past, when Kristen was alive, he would come home on Mondays and cry because his daughter and son weren't there. And he's kind of saying, like, I wish I was doing that today instead of you being dead. I'd rather have you alive and here to be a mother to our children than gone. I'd rather have to go without them for a few days and know you were still alive and in their lives and with us than dead. On March 16th, Donnell's Facebook account posted a bunch of pictures of Sarah, Sarah's little sister Jaylee, along with their mother and James, the stepfather. And she wrote, "I love you guys, Sarah." So this was obviously coming from Sarah. Donnell had not posted these pictures, Sarah did. And then on March 19th, this same account, Donnell's account, posted a picture of Sarah with her mother, Kristen, and the caption said, quote, "It's Sarah. I post a lot of TikToks about my mom, and my username is sgrace04282. They're emotional, but just know I'm okay and have a good support system." End quote. So basically, she's advertising. She's advertising for her TikTok. And why is she using Donnell's phone? Why is she using his Facebook account? Because the police have taken her phone. So she does not have access to her electronic devices, and she's using her father's. And now she's using her father's Facebook to advertise to the people that she knows so that they can go follow her on TikTok. Now, that same day, Donnell posted that he wanted everyone to know a lot of his posts were actually coming from his daughter, Sarah, because the police had taken her phone due to the investigation. He said, quote, "I've been allowing her to use my phone and my Facebook for her to vent and let people know what's on her mind." End quote. I also thought it was interesting that Donnell posted a picture of Sarah's ultrasound. So, it's like that 3D ultrasound picture, the ones that kind of look creepy, because they look like little aliens in there, and it's all bubbly, and you can actually see their facial features. It's really cool technology, but I always get a little creeped out by them personally. Let me know in the comments if you agree. And when I say this was Sarah's ultrasound picture, I don't mean her pregnancy. I mean, this is Sarah's ultrasound, like when she was a baby inside of her mother. Donnell wrote, quote, "Exactly 17 years apart. The happiest news. Me and Kristen received the happiest news of our life. She was taken away the same exact day. I was just going through the baby pictures and noticed this." End quote. Now, the date on the ultrasound photo is February 21st, 2008. Kristen and James were found dead on February 20th, and law enforcement has already announced that they cannot be sure of the time of death at this point, meaning did this happen before midnight on the 20th or after? So Donnell's saying, oh, this ultrasound picture is when we got the happiest news of our life, me and Kristen, and now, on the same exact day, this many years later, she's dead. It wasn't the same exact day, but that's just, me picking at this point. Now, it's also important to note that Donnell Patrick attended the same church as James and Kristen Brock did. This was Catalyst Church, and he posted on Facebook that on May 8th, there would be a memorial service and funeral for Kristen and James at the church. Now, at the memorial service, Sarah got up and gave a moving speech about her mother and her stepfather, complete with tears, very emotional words, and feelings. Now, Kristen Dowda is the niece of James Brock, and you can tell they were very, very close. Until Sarah's arrest, Kristen stayed quiet about her feelings, but once the arrest was made, she came out strong with her opinions and shared on her Facebook a clip of Sarah's memorial speech. The caption on her post is kind of savage, kind of like, she's done, she doesn't care anymore, and it reads, quote, "After their funeral, when I saw someone had recorded this, I immediately saved it because I knew one day everyone would get to see this for what it was. The feeling of being at a funeral to say goodbye to someone you loved and thinking to yourself, am I actually witnessing the person that murdered them standing up here in front of everyone and fake crying about them? Does anyone else see this person doing a crying voice but never shed a single tear? This is what a monster looks like. Monsters do come in the forms of sweet-looking girls in dresses sometimes, and luckily in this case, the monster gets to trade her dress for a jumpsuit and handcuffs." End quote. I mean, wow, we left it all on the table, right? Kristen Dowda. I mean, I have to respect it, right? I have to give her credit because she came out and she said it with her chest. Now, let's watch Sarah's speech. And I added subtitles to make it a bit easier to understand what she's saying in case you have trouble hearing her.
For those of you who do not know me, my name is Sarah, and I'm Kristen Brock's daughter and James Brock's stepdaughter. This isn't easy, and I don't know how Fan and Angie do this all the time, but I'm really happy I get to do this. But just bear with me because I stutter a lot. I just wanted to say goodbye to my mom and Jamie since we never got the chance to. I was so used to you guys always being here to believe that I never once thought to imagine y'all not being here. I didn't have a single clue with how much I needed y'all until now. For James, thank you for all the life lessons you taught me and for being the best bonus dad ever. Your heart will finally be healed in heaven and neither of y'all will be in any pain anymore. Although that gives me so much comfort, your fight was not supposed to end there. And for my mother, everything we went through does not define what kind of person or what kind of mother you were. You were a beautiful, kind soul with so much gratitude and so gosh dang strong. And you taught me so many life lessons, and some that you just recently taught me right there in the letter you sent to James in 2018. When I first read it, I smiled and I cried, and I got chill bumps. But every single time I read it, it puts me to a lot of peace. So I thought I would share it. May 23rd, 2018. Deuteronomy 6:5. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. The wrong one will find you in peace and leave you in pieces, but the right one will find you in pieces and lead you to peace. We can't always choose the music that life plays for us, but you can choose how we dance to it. She was always dancing to her own beat, LOL. And keep in mind, she wrote that herself. Eventually, all the pieces fall into place, but until then, laugh at the confusion, live for the moment, and know that everything happens for a reason. I can choose to let it define me, confine me, refine me, outshine me, or I can choose to move on and leave it behind me. Always, Kristen Brock. Considering that gave me so much closure, I want to remember them for who they were and not what happened to them, and be happy for the time we got to spend together and not sad about the time that we don't. I may always and will always be her sunshine, but she will always be my star from up above. And I know at nighttime I can go and look at Mama and Jamie in the sky, and gladly they will save me a seat in heaven like they saved for me. I'm sorry. Gladly they will save a seat for me in heaven like they saved a seat for me in this very church. Although there's nothing we can do to bring them back, we still have control over how we treat people with us today. Therefore, when someone tries to tell you anything, no matter how important it could be, just listen, because you never know when it's somebody's time to go. You could say goodnight and wake up a few hours just to find out they aren't there despite their joy and their love. So just listen and never take a hug or anyone or anything for granted, and love with all that you have in you like they did. And lastly, my take on not taking people for granted. I want to thank my family, also known as my Cata fam, my grandparents, my siblings, Jaylee, Donnie, Jaden, Jojo, Trent, Tristan, Ashley, and Jesse for helping me get through my worst nightmare. And last but not least, I want to thank Tasha, Bree, Nate, Layton, Kimberly Hayes, Kim Bowling, Katie, and most of all, my father, Angie, and Ben for making such a big difference. Jamie and Mama would have thanked y'all too. I love you guys, and so do I. And so do they. I'm sorry. Now, back to me.
So James's niece, Kristen Dowda, spoke to Hidden True Crime YouTube channel. I'll link it down below. And she revealed more of her thoughts during that speech.
I was front row at this funeral where I watched her do this with my own two eyes, and not a single tear was shed. And this isn't something that I thought about afterwards. This isn't something that I've gone back to the video and looked for. I was thinking it at the time. I was thinking, what is this voice that she is doing that sounds like crying, but a tear is never shed? And you can see on the video, she doesn't wipe a tear. She does not have a tissue. She does not shed a tear. Her eyes are not red. It's not speculation that she was not crying. She absolutely was not crying.
So what were your thoughts then? You're front row watching this eulogy. What's going through your mind?
I mean, it was one of the weirdest things that I have ever witnessed. My mom spoke at the funeral. Jamie's oldest son spoke at the funeral. One of their good friends spoke at the funeral. There was tears everywhere. Everybody couldn't get through their speech, needed someone. My mom needed her friend up there with her just to get it through it. And I think it's weird that Sarah, after losing her mom, got up there in her dress and did this big long speech and didn't ever shed a tear. Didn't ever stop to gather herself. I think it was very weird.
So were you suspicious at that moment?
We had all kind of, talked about it here and there, after the murders. The funeral wasn't right away. So, we had talked and everything, but at the funeral, that was kind of a big, wow.
On May 20th, 2025, Sarah Grace Patrick walked the stage at her high school graduation, which her father called one of the proudest moments of his life. But by then, Sarah had been creating TikToks for months, starting in March of 2025. We're going to go through some of these posts now. Sarah's account has been taken down, but luckily plenty of people saved and screen recorded the posts before they were all removed so we can get a look into the mind of this teenage girl. And basically, Sarah made her entire TikTok account about the death of her mother and stepfather. And knowing what we now know, these posts obviously are eerie and uncomfortable, especially in hindsight. If that went too fast for you and you couldn't read what the words on the screen said, the words on the screen say, "They don't know it, but a year from now, me and my 5-year-old sister would find them wrongfully shot dead in our home and won't get to watch my graduate high school, see me walk down the aisle, and couldn't even say goodbye." End quote. And the caption reads, quote, "I miss you guys. Save a seat for me in heaven." End quote. So on March 3rd, Sarah posted this. The first picture is of Sarah with the words on the screen reading, "But at nighttime when there's nothing to do and the house is empty." And then the next picture, the next slide, is James and Kristen Brock hugging and kissing in the kitchen with the words on the screen reading, "I'd always think about how much I needed them." End quote. So next, Sarah posted another video collage. I'm just going to show you a screenshot of it because I don't want Sarah's brother's face to be shown. Basically, it's a video of, it's a bunch of videos together of Sarah's sister, brother, Sarah, Kristen, Brock, and the voice of their mother in the background. And the words on the screen read, "Don't ever take your family for granted. That voice you once thought was annoying is what you may end up falling asleep to every night, and the only way you can hear it again is over video. It's not good enough. I just want my mama." End quote. This was posted on March 5th, and the caption read, "Let me know in the comments if I should make a vid addressing a few rumors and things that have been mixed up." Okay, so there's that. So then on March 9th, Sarah posted a video of her mother and little sister dancing at church, and the caption read, "Finally got to dance with my mama, just not how I expected." End quote. And it looks like this video was played at the memorial. So this video of Kristen dancing with Jaylee was played at the memorial, and everyone was dancing along with the video at the memorial. So I believe that's what Sarah meant by finally being able to dance with her mother. I don't know if she's suggesting she had never done that before. She had never danced with her mother before, but that's what Sarah posted. And so far, I guess we could say nothing's that odd, but it gets stranger. So on March 13th, Sarah posted another slideshow of photos, and these photos were odd because the first picture is of Sarah. She's all dressed up with her hair done, full beat makeup, really feeling herself. You can tell she's a pretty girl. Fine. She should be, feeling herself and have confidence. It's just weird with the following photos. Because in that first picture, she looks like she's about to go out clubbing, and then the rest of the pictures are just of her sobbing with different text over the screen and over the pictures of her sobbing. I'm going to play this for you now. Now, there was a sad song playing. I turned the volume off for copyright reasons. So that first picture, that thirst trap picture of Sarah had the words over it. You're just thinking it's a small thing that happened. And that's a weird take. I don't believe that anyone feels losing your mother and stepfather to some murdering psychopath while you sleep in the same house is a small thing. I'm sure no one said this to her. I can't imagine how anybody would ever be like, well, it's just a small thing that happened. But using that audio, that specific audio song, and saying it's a small thing that happened is a TikTok trend. Just like the "they don't know it, but a year from now" is a TikTok trend. These are trends that creators will use to go viral. So the trending audio, "We Hug Now" by Sydney Rose, has lyrics that go, "You're just thinking it's a small thing that happened. The world ended when it happened to me." That was the song playing over it. So it's a TikTok trend to use that song and this trend together, hoping that your TikTok goes viral. Now, the next picture is Sarah's face. She's got her hand over her mouth. She's crying with the words on the screen reading, "I just want my mama." Next, a picture of Sarah looking directly into the camera, crying mascara tears with the words on the screen reading, "I can't do this shit without my mom." The next picture is of Sarah sitting in a car, showing I think what are hives on her chest, with the words over the screen saying, "Sent into an anxiety attack as we enter the parking lot to the church my parents always took me to." Thumbs up emoji. After this, we have another photo of Sarah crying with the words, "I still can't comprehend the fact that I'm never going to get to go home," followed by another picture of Sarah seemingly sobbing, clutching a red or pink t-shirt, and the words on the screen say, "Her t-shirt, heart emoji." So I believe that Sarah's referring to the fact that this is her mother Kristen's t-shirt. Then we get another picture of Sarah crying, and the words on the screen read, "What do you mean I can't call my mom?" And after that, a picture of Sarah in a car, and she's got makeup and her hair's done, and the words over the screen say, "This can't be real, on the way to my parents' funeral." Then we get another picture of Sarah and her mascara tears with the words, "Still doesn't feel real, but it still stings," which yeah, it hasn't been a month. I'm sure your mother and stepfather being brutally murdered would still be causing quite a sting. I'm sorry, but of course no time has passed, none. So then another close-up photo of Sarah crying with the words, why me? And finally, a picture of Sarah and her mother with the words, the world ended when it happened to me, right? So that's part of the trend. You got to start with, you think it's just a small thing that happened, and then you end with the picture that says, the world ended when it happened to me. So the caption for the whole post said, quote, ignore my ugly cries. Hardest part is the fact that it hasn't even been a month yet, and her birthday and Mother's Day and my birthday is all coming up. Sorry for the same song twice. I can't get it out of my head, end quote. Or you were using that same song more than once because you know that same song was what was making a lot of creators' videos go viral and, getting onto people's feeds and stuff. So, or that. Not saying that that's why, but maybe. So Sarah's next post went out on March 18th, and once again, I'm going to mute the audio, but I want to play the video for you. So obviously I had to mute the audio. She's not saying anything. She's just mouthing the lyrics to a song about feeling so tired of falling apart or something like that. And the caption to this post reads, quote, please send prayers for healing and for a break from everything. I'm so tired. I should probably delete later, end quote. She did not, in fact, delete this post later. Next, we have another photo slideshow posted on March 19th with the caption reading, quote, in honor of my mom, because she loved Jelly Roll and she loved this song so much that it was played first thing at the funeral, end quote. Kristen did in fact love Jelly Roll. She was always sharing his songs on Facebook. So did her husband James, seemed to be an artist that they liked. So she started this photo slideshow off with another photo of her looking done up and pretty, followed by more crying and sobbing photos, and then strangely ending with a photo of herself, Sarah, looking happy with the word hallelujah on the screen. And I know that the words on the screen were the lyrics from this specific song, hard fought, heartfelt, hallelujah, but it just felt like an odd way to end this particular slideshow with a picture of her looking happy and the word hallelujah. I don't know. Maybe I'm off base. I don't know. So on March 22nd, Sarah posted another photo slideshow, but this time it was all the same photo with words over the screen. I'll play it for you really quick, and then I'll read what the words on the screen were because there's a lot of them. All right, so the words on the screen read, quote, it hasn't hit yet that they're actually gone yet. It hits me when I see my 5-year-old sister screaming, crying for her mommy and daddy. It hits me when I go into a depression spell so bad that I call 988 and contemplate going to a mental hospital. It hits me when I can't stop shaking to the point where my body is in pain because of the soreness of constantly doing it. It hits me when the thoughts of eating food is disgusting to me. It hits me when my hair comes out in clumps because of the anxiety of having to build a new life without them and in a different house in town. It hits me when it feels like someone is sitting on my chest with acorns inside of it from the panic attacks when I get overwhelmed with the hurt and madness and confusion. It hits me when my whole body aches so bad I don't even want to get out of bed or even have the energy to brush my hair. It hits me when I can't see my sister and brother. It hits me when I see how none of my family can recover and we are all left confused and hurt with no answers. It hits me when I cannot sleep at night because I can't escape my thoughts and I can't help but cry for hours. It hits me when I have a constant pounding headache in multiple areas of my head that causes me to push all my loved ones away and be annoyed by everything. It hits me when I want to stay in bed all day and cry and don't feel like continuing. I got help. It may not have fully hit me yet, but what has fully hit me is that they should be here. And the thought of a hug from them tears me to pieces because I know I can't hug them no matter how bad I want and need to. And most of all, it hits that I need my mom more than ever right now. And I know I cannot get closure because nothing will bring them back. If you know something, please speak up and help me and my family heal. End quote. On March 25th, we have another photo collage.
Rain that's coming, lights in the tunnel. I'm standing at the terminal of eternal jewels.
God is love. It's neither you just did.
The caption on this one says she should be here, and so should he. On March 26th, Sarah posted a photo slideshow of the house, the Brock house, where they were killed, and pictures of the house after it had become a crime scene, and she captioned this, "Wish I could show the worst of it." Then Sarah started posting videos of her just looking cute and lip-syncing to songs like this one I'm going to show you, in which it looks like there's a true crime documentary playing in the background. Let me know what you think. Now, it's unclear whether these types of TikToks were filmed before or after the murders, the ones of her looking cute with the true crime in the background and of her, like, just showing herself off, because she did have another TikTok account. She just started a new one to talk about her mother and stepfather. So these TikToks may have been from her old TikTok account. But I wanted to show you this specific one because it may kind of show that Sarah Grace Patrick could have been a true crime fan, which I think is important given the context. So on April 7th, Sarah posted a slideshow of pictures with the words, "You handled her death so well." And in the caption, she wrote, "Sorry for posting these kinds of vids a lot. It just helps to talk about it and get it off my chest." Now, one of the pictures in the slideshow showed Sarah and her mother, and on the screen, Sarah wrote, quote, "We had matching necklaces that we wore every day before everything happened. I haven't taken mine off. And if it breaks, I'm afraid I may crash out, then get it refurnished, even if it cost me an arm and a leg. Her necklace she was wearing, our matching necklace, that she passed in, will have to be given to my little sister, and I have no idea when or how to tell her the meaning behind it because she's only 5. She would always try to talk to me about if something were to happen to her and how it would be, and I would never let her because I never thought she would go first. When I was growing up, we struggled really bad, and she would go without eating just so we could have money to buy food for me and my brother. And even when we did, she would never eat any of it. She lived off ramen noodles to support me at her lowest, and I can't thank her because she's gone. When I had to go back to that house, it ruined my mood and made me shake really bad and feel so sick for days. I still talk to both her and James because only they understand the true me. I'll never forget her last time speaking to me. She came into my room when I was in bed watching a show, and she told me goodnight in a deep voice, acting silly. I should have hugged her. And when James talked to me last, he told me, "Love you, good night," through the door. It tears me apart that I didn't open that door and give him a hug. End quote. That's weird, okay? What's weird about it is Sarah says her mother, Kristen, would always talk to her about what would happen, if she died, if Kristen died. And Sarah said, "I never would let her because I never thought she would go first." That's how, unfortunately, yes, many of us have to live in the world where it is a reality that we will most likely live on past our parents, right? They are far older than we are. Of course, unless something, obviously that's not always what happens. Sometimes parents outlive their children. It's tragic, it's horrible, but it's the most normal kind of experience to have that your parents will die before you. So for her to say, "I never thought she would go first," what does that mean? That's just a very weird thing to say. On May 18th, Sarah posted some more pictures with the words, quote, "If you asked me about my mom and stepdad, I'd say I miss them so much. But if you were to ask me on a deeper level, I'd tell you that I just want to go home. I feel so homesick and I miss them so much. I can't stand the fact that I can't see them anymore. This sucks more than anything possible. I feel like I'm in a horror movie that never ends. And on top of everything, I still have no answers. I'm so confused on how someone could have done this and even more confused on why. Why them? Why that? Just why? How could they?" End quote. So then on June 3rd, Sarah sent a message on TikTok to a true crime creator, and the channel name is allegedly reportedly. And Sarah told this creator to look up the Brock case. And I think the creator wrote back like, Brock who, And Sarah wrote another message that said, quote, "They're my parents, and out of nowhere, a random Thursday night in February, someone came in my house with me and my 5-year-old sister and shot my parents brutally, leaving them for me and my little sister to wake up to." End quote.
Did you believe her at first? I absolutely did. I thought I get requests for case almost every day, case, coverage. So to me, this is just a teenager who is going through a horrible moment, and I want to help her. I want to cover this, and maybe someone that knows something will say something. That's always the hope. But as I began researching it, I did have some questions, but I didn't want to lean into those questions. I just told myself, this is a teenager. This is the victim's daughter. There's no way. So I covered it.
This true crime creator, her name is Janice, she said that she had read her husband the messages from Sarah, and he was suspicious about Sarah based on Sarah's version of events, because Sarah gave Janice some kind of inside information. And Janice says, listen, I'm not going to share what she told me publicly. I have shared it with the investigators on this case, but I also talked to my husband about it. And her husband was like, yeah, that doesn't add up. That doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm kind of suspicious. And Janice was like, well, I just kind of believe the best in everyone. And but honestly, who can blame Janice? Because who would do something like that, right? Who would kill their parents and then go on TikTok and try to get true crime creators to cover the case of her parent? Who would do that? And as Janice and Sarah messaged more, things seemed to be a bit off. And even Janice was kind of like, ugh, this is weird.
Yeah, so there's a DM from Sarah that you've never shared with anyone. I'm going to read it now. So this is what she sent you. This was back on June 4th, so not that long ago. I think it would be a really big hit because the only person who posted about it made it as the first image you see when you Google their names. Plus, I can give you intel. Just, I can't give you anything that could break the case. That's what cops told me. I mean, when I read that, because I get a lot of DMs too from people wanting me to cover cases and all sorts of things. But the fact that she said, I think it would be a really big hit, just to me is kind of strange. If she's the daughter of these victims, this is her mom, why is she concerned about what would get clicks or be a big hit? Did you think that was weird?
I did, but then I told, maybe I can be a bit naive, and I always want to think the best of people. That can be a good and a bad thing. But with this, I thought, well, maybe I just don't understand the way teenagers think anymore. Maybe they are always thinking about views, and they're always in this social media mindset. But that did strike me as odd, but I still, even if some things were odd, I did not think to myself, she took the lives of her mother and stepfather. But I guess looking back, hindsight, maybe I should have found it even stranger than I did.
It would be a really big hit. If you cover this case of my parents being murdered in their bed, you're going to get a lot of views. It's going to be a big hit. People are going to love it. Excuse me, ma'am, that's wild. That's wild coming from a teenager who's been sobbing on TikTok for months. That's wild coming from anyone who just lost their parents, okay? And Janice has shown these messages. Janice has no reason to lie or make them up. These are valid. These are legitimate. Now, reportedly, Sarah also reached out to TikTok creator Mama Tot in April. This creator did not see the message until after Sarah's arrest, but the message said, Mama Tot, I need a mama bad right now. I'm going through it. And then we have Kelly Brown, a friend of the family, who Sarah approached after the murders asking if, Kelly could help her.
So Sarah reached out to me on Sunday, and we spoke on the phone, and we spoke via text. And she asked me to speak on her behalf about the night of 2/20/25.
That's Kelly Brown, a family friend of the Brocks. In this video, she claims that Patrick told her that she didn't hear anything out of the normal the night her mom and stepdad were shot to death.
But she did hear James's LVAD machine, which is his heart machine that kept his heart pumping. She did hear that alarm going off throughout the night.
In the comment section of the video, Patrick posts that she heard the alarm going off 10 to 20 minutes before she went to bed, but claims it was faint because of background noises.
Truly bizarre, but let's talk about what Sarah claimed, that she didn't hear any gunshots, but before going to bed, she could hear the sound of the alarm on James's LVAD machine. So these LVAD devices have a built-in alarm that sounds when the device detects a problem or a critical change. And the alarms are loud, high-pitched beeps or tones. They usually escalate depending on the severity of the issue. The alarm can sound for many reasons, like if the power is disconnected, if the pump fails or stops, if the patient is bleeding internally, or the heart has stopped pumping blood effectively, or if the patient dies and the heart stops circulating blood altogether. Now, Sarah says she went to bed no later than midnight, and about 10 to 20 minutes before that is when she started hearing the alarm. And it's clear that it's when she started hearing the alarm, not just when she heard it, because she said the first time I heard it was 10 to 20 minutes before going to bed, which makes me think that it continued going off or went off more and other times after she first heard it. And a lot of people have a hard time believing that Sarah would hear this LVAD alarm, but not hear the sound of several gunshots. Here's Kristen Dowda, James's niece, talking about the gunshots and the LVAD alarm.
Do you believe that Sarah killed your uncle and his wife, Kristen?
I do. Yes.
Okay. Why do you think that?
It pretty much from the beginning, honestly. I think anybody that hears that she didn't hear gunshots, I think that it's been put out here recently that the house was unusual and the rooms weren't that close, but that's not true. The rooms were very close. The house was small. The bedrooms were all located in one area of the home. And I mean, of course, I'm not out there with a measuring tape, but if I were to guess, between the doorway of Jamie and Kristen's room and Sarah's room, maybe 8 feet.
Okay. And not only gunshots, but also the heart monitor that woke up their little girl, 5-year-old girl, Jaylee.
Right.
Do you believe that was going off for how long?
Hours. Had to have been. But it's came out and it's public now that Jaylee not only heard the heart monitor, she heard the gunshots. And her room is next door to Sarah's.
So Jaylee heard the gunshots too?
Yes.
Can you confirm just how many gunshots or wounds there were? Because we have heard mixed.
Right. I can confirm exactly, but multiple. I mean, more than 2 or 3. I mean, so you combine the gunshots and the LVAD monitor going off. I mean, that's a lot of noise for a house that's small and the bedrooms are close together.
On July 1st, 2025, the Carroll County Sheriff's Office submitted a warrant for the arrest of a now 17-year-old Sarah Grace Patrick. She was charged with 2 counts of murder and 2 counts of aggravated assault. On July 8th, Sarah turned herself in to the police. She was driven to the station by her father, and it was announced that she would be charged as an adult.
From the very moment the 911 call was received, a relentless investigation began, one that would span months, consume thousands of man-hours, and require the full weight of the local and federal law enforcement agency partnerships. Today, we can confirm that an arrest has been made in the case. Kristen Brock's 17-year-old daughter, Sarah Grace Patrick, has been taken into custody and charged with 2 counts of murder and 2 counts of aggravated assault in connection with the deaths of her mother and her stepfather. While the case has not remained in the public spotlight in recent months, the investigation has never gone silent. Led by investigator TJ Repetto, our team has pursued every lead, sifted through mountains of physical and digital evidence, conducted countless interviews, and collaborated with agencies such as the FBI, the GBI Crime Lab, and private forensic laboratories. In a world where television portrays crimes being solved in under an hour, the truth here is much more complex. Real justice takes time. Time to ensure that no detail is overlooked and no stone is not turned over. The pursuit of justice does not end today, however. It is very possible, because this remains an open and ongoing investigation, that more arrests and charges could be made. Like I said in my press release, mountains of evidence has gotten us through here today. Lots of processing, lots of working with our law enforcement partners to get us to where we are today that honed in on her as a suspect.
That was Ashley Halsey from the Carroll County Sheriff's Office, and you heard her say that law enforcement had mountains of digital and forensic evidence against Sarah Grace Patrick. Halsey was asked if she believed Sarah had intentionally tried to cover up what she had done, and she replied that considering Sarah hadn't immediately told them what happened, yes, that was what law enforcement believed, but, quote, who knows what's going on in a young person's mind like that, end quote. Halsey said again that they were confident Sarah was responsible, but it was very possible others were involved as well. She said it was hard to tell if other family members knew about what Sarah had done, but everyone they had talked to throughout the course of the investigation who were family members had been nothing but cooperative. Halsey was asked a lot of questions about what type of evidence they had found, with reporters clearly trying to get specific details about this evidence, but she always reminded them that this was an ongoing and open investigation, so she could not reveal that. Ashley Halsey also spoke to Law and Crime, and I'm going to play a short clip of what she told them, and then we're going to discuss it.
You know, they interviewed her initially. They've spoken with her 2 or 3 times, obviously, throughout the course of the investigation. And then again, prior to her arrest earlier this week, her father has been a very active role in that as well. But she has, and the family has, been cooperative. We just don't believe she has been truthful. You know, when we arrived on scene on February 20th and obviously saw these deceased victims who had been shot multiple times, this is a very rural area of Carroll County. There's not a lot of ambient noise and things going on in that area. Very small home that they lived in. When the smallest child, who was forensically interviewed as well through this process, said she heard the gunshots, but the 17-year-old or 16-year-old at the time did not hear the gunshots, that was cause for pause for us early on. But again, throughout the course of the investigation, we had to look at all aspects of the case and follow where the evidence took us. And here we are. And when I say mountains of evidence, in the world we live in today, not only do we have forensic evidence, geographical evidence, and digital evidence, those things take time to send the search warrants off, get those returns, have the people sort through those, have the investigators look at what could be pertinent information. And unfortunately, crime labs throughout the United States are backed up. These things do not come to us as soon as we submit them.
What do we know about motive at this point?
We're still working on that. Still working on it.
Do you have the murder weapon?
I can't comment on that.
Another part that's caught a lot of people's attention was her speaking at the funeral.
For me, watching it online, I wasn't there in person. You know, I don't know if she had real tears. I can't feel that emotion necessarily through watching it online. However, I think, you know, it was more like a speech. It was very scripted. And then at the end, you know, she said, and I'm sorry. Now, she may have been sorry because she was showing emotion possibly throughout that eulogy, if you want to call it that. But she also could have said it meaning something deeper. We just may never know exactly what she meant by that, but it did raise my eyebrows.
Ashley Halsey talked about law enforcement arriving on scene to the home of James and Kristen Brock, which was located in a very rural area of Carroll County. She said there's not a lot of ambient noise, and she described the home as being very small. Now, police were having a hard time understanding how Sarah did not hear the gunshots, but her younger sister did hear the gunshots. And Ashley Halsey is sort of inferring, in my opinion, that this is what first gave law enforcement a suspicion towards Sarah, which is fair, I think. A lot of people in support of Sarah have said they don't believe it's strange that she didn't hear the gunshots. Some have suggested that the real assailant or assailants could have used silencers, but I believe the fact that Sarah's little sister heard the gunshots rules that out as a possibility, right? Because if the little girl can hear it, then why can't Sarah? Obviously, silencers are going to make it so that, you know, no one can hear it. Others have suggested that because Sarah's a teenager, she may have had her television or radio on loudly, or maybe she even had earbuds in, etc. And we know that, according to Sarah, both her TV and her little sister's TV were on and playing, but she could hear the LVAD alarm going off. But overall, I think it's an accurate thing to be suspicious of because the area is rural and quiet, because the house is quite small. And like I said, it's hard to believe that even with the television or radio on, the Sarah would not have heard multiple gunshots. And if she'd been sleeping with earbuds in, she would have mentioned that. She would have mentioned that already. But as far as I know, and as far as what's been reported, that has not been said. She has not claimed that. Ashley Halsey also talked about the mountain of evidence she referred to in the press conference, and she specifically mentions digital evidence, forensic evidence, and geographical evidence. I believe a lot of what has led police to be so confident in their arrest of Sarah Grace Patrick was most likely found on her cell phone. She's a 17-year-old girl. She was 16 at the time of the crime. She's in no way a criminal mastermind, even if she's super smart. She doesn't have the experience. She doesn't have the know-how. She doesn't have the impulse control. She may be a true crime fan, right? She may understand certain mistakes made in crimes, certain things to do or not do. She may also understand that even information deleted from her cellular device could still be recovered by law enforcement. But what happened that night may have been spur of the moment, maybe not necessarily premeditated. She may not have had a ton of time to delete things from her phone. She may have missed things, and I'm guessing there are texts and probably web searches that might be pointing to Sarah hiding something or covering something up. Maybe conversations with friends or boyfriends where she talked about hating her parents or hating her stepfather, messages maybe about wanting to move out of her mother's house and live with her father, which has already been suggested. Maybe web searches about deleting information off of phones so that the police can't find things, things like that. I know for a fact, well, I don't know for a fact, but I feel very confident in the belief that Sarah was not arrested simply because it seemed weird that she didn't hear gunshots and that the weapon was not found in the home, which rules out a murder-suicide. But Ashley Halsey was explaining why it took 6 months between when the murders happened and when Sarah was arrested. And she's saying basically they had so much evidence, they needed time to go through all that forensic and digital evidence, and that does take time. Ashley Halsey also says they're still working on the motive. But once again, I do have a sneaking suspicion that the officials, law enforcement, have a general idea of what the motive might be. Once again, from information and details that they may have gathered from Sarah's cell phone, her mother and stepfather's cell phones, interviews with friends and family, etc. We have talked about before how there's no burden on the prosecution to prove motive or even talk about motive during a trial. So even if the police had a vague idea of what the motive might be right now, they wouldn't benefit from saying anything about it or testing their theories out in the public square. But I have to believe that they have some theories. Ashley Halsey also would not disclose anything about whether or not police had recovered the murder weapon, and this did give me pause because we know the gun wasn't found in the house. They've already reported that. But if they hadn't found any weapon yet, I feel like she would have just answered no, right? Because like I said, it's already been publicly reported that the murder weapon wasn't found in the home. It makes me wonder if the police have found the gun during the investigation, and if this is another piece of evidence they have against Sarah. Maybe they have her prints on the gun, maybe they traced where she got the gun from. Because it has been stated by family that there were no guns kept in James and Kristen's home. In fact, Kristen Dowda, James's niece, she said, I'd be very surprised if they had a gun in that house. Now, I don't know how I feel about this. Let me know what your thoughts are as far as, the weapon, whether they found it or not. But I've also been wondering about home security cameras, doorbell cameras, things like that. Would the police potentially have video from a neighbor that would show no one entering the Brock home before the murders happened? Or maybe video of Sarah sneaking out of the house with a bag that might be holding the weapon? I put their address into Google Earth to see just how rural and isolated the area where their home is and to see if there's any close neighbors who might have had home security cameras. So here is the Brock home, and as you can see, they do have a neighbor to their right, but there's a lot of trees between that home and the Brock home. There doesn't seem to be a house to the left of them, and if you go across the street, there are 2 houses, but the way the houses are positioned and set so far back off the road and the amount of trees at the road line, that might cause a visibility issue. If either of these houses have doorbell cameras, I don't think they would be able to see anything happening at the Brock house in detail. But if any of these houses do have cameras of any kind. What those cameras may have picked up are cars or headlights from cars, which might have shown if someone was driving down that road around the time of the murders. If both of those houses had cameras, it would be helpful because you might see a vehicle approaching the Brock house, passing one of the houses across the street, but then not passing the other house, meaning they stopped at the Brock house, and that vehicle could have either been carrying the real murderer or murderers, or have been carrying someone connected to Sarah, like a potential accomplice who was either picking her up so that she could dispose of evidence, or who was helping her by collecting the evidence from her so that they could dispose of it. I don't know, but I guarantee you surveillance footage is a big part of this case. I also looked at pictures of the inside of the home. It's a 5-bedroom, 2-bathroom, just under 2,000 square feet house sitting on 1.5 acres. To me, that doesn't seem like a super small house, but I wanted to see how the bedrooms were situated. So clearly whoever owned this home at the time before James and Kristen used their 5th bedroom as an office. So here's the office. You can see a doorway here. Going to this angle, you can see a doorway going out there, and you can see the doorway of what looks like another bedroom because that's a bed. Going to this one, this is a 2nd bedroom, what was being used as a nursery, and once again through that doorway, you can see 2 more doorways. One definitely is a bedroom because you can see a bed. This one over here might be a bedroom, or it could be the doorway to a laundry room or something else. Going out here, this is the same room from a different angle. Once again, you can see the doorway and what looks like an air conditioning or heating unit of some kind. This is the 3rd bedroom. It was definitely a little girl's bedroom, but it's very small, so they never show an angle of it from the bed showing the doorway, so you really can't tell, but this was a small room. This may have been Sarah's younger sister's room. They show the closet here. This is the 4th bedroom. The door is closed here, but it's open here, and you can see once again several doorways leading to other bedrooms. And then this would be the master bedroom where James and Kristen slept. This looks like the doorway to a closet, but going over here, you can see that same air conditioning unit that we saw coming out the doorway of bedroom 2, and you can see other doorways to other bedrooms. So it does appear that all of the bedrooms were located in the same area of the house, and like James's niece said, all the bedrooms were very close together, and the doorways of each bedroom would have been within feet of each other. Ashley Halsey also mentioned Sarah's eulogy at her mother and stepfather's funeral, and you heard what she personally believed, that Sarah's words sounded scripted, more like a speech, and that Sarah had said at the end, "I'm sorry." And a lot of people have targeted in and honed in on the "I'm sorry," and I personally didn't. Of all the things Sarah Grace Patrick did and said, her saying "I'm sorry" at the end of that speech did not strike me as odd. I don't find it strange at all because I'm the kind of person who apologizes all the time, even when I don't need to, even when I haven't done anything wrong. Someone will bump into me and I'll say, "I'm sorry," or I'll be at the doctor's office really sick and coughing and I'll apologize for coughing. For some people, this is just an automatic thing to do. I took the "I'm sorry" as Sarah saying she was sorry for being emotional, for not always getting her words out, for being kind of flustered, not totally organized. That's how I took it. But apparently a lot of other people, including the police, see it a different way. And James Brock's niece, Kristen Dowda, did mention something else about Sarah saying "I'm sorry" after she got off the stage. And Kristen Dowda spoke about this on Hidden True Crime.
It's public knowledge now that the investigators immediately thought it was a red flag that she said "I'm sorry" at the end of her eulogy. That video has been out since, I'm pretty sure, the day after the funeral. Her dad posted it. It's been public this entire time. But what people don't know is that after she got done and the funeral was over, she went one by one to everybody in my family, everybody that knew James, and also hugged us and said she was sorry, which is an odd thing to say when your mother was murdered. You know, we don't know exactly what she meant by that, so I'm not going to say that I do, but if it's weird that she said "I'm sorry" in the eulogy, it's very weird that she went around and said that she was sorry to people who lost, and we did. We lost an uncle and a brother and a friend, but she lost her mother. We were sorry.
I'm trying to be unbiased here, and I don't think that it's really a news flash to you guys that I'm definitely leaning in the direction of Sarah having done this, Sarah being guilty. But I do want to be fair. And I honestly don't find it strange that Sarah would go around saying she was sorry to the people who loved James. Yes, she did lose her mother, but they lost someone as well. And you can be sorry for someone else while also being in pain and experiencing a loss yourself. I would have done the same thing. So although I did find Sarah's eulogy to be a bit forced and off-putting, kind of dramatic, kind of like an acting performance, I don't really think her saying sorry at any time resembles a red flag to me personally. Additionally, I had mentioned something about possible accomplices, and Ashley Halsey also talked about that during the press conference, stating that there could be more people involved and there may be more arrests coming. And here she is adding some context to that statement.
A lot of talk is the idea that there could be more arrests. What did you mean by that?
So basically, throughout this course of the investigation and working with Sarah, investigators have been speaking with her throughout. It's very possible that others are involved, whether they had knowledge or whether they assisted. We're still investigating that aspect. We're still conducting interviews this week. So even though an arrest has been made, and we're grateful to bring some closure to the family, as tough as that may be for them, we still have a lot of work to do, and our main goal is to provide full justice for those victims and closure for the families.
And just clarification on that, would you say you're interviewing potential suspects in this case?
We are interviewing potential suspects and anyone that we feel may have information. We have conversations thousands of times a day with different individuals, right? So there may be someone out there, whether it's someone local here in our community, someone that was friends with Sarah or her family, that may have had conversations throughout the course of this investigation. And now that this has come to light that Sarah is in custody, maybe those conversations mean something different now. And if that's the case, and you feel like you may hold a piece of that puzzle that will help bring continued closure for this family, then I urge anyone with that information, even if they think it's insignificant, in the grand scheme of things, it could be big for us. Please contact the Carroll County Sheriff's Office and speak to us about this. If Sarah has reached out to you or you've had conversations with her that maybe doesn't sit right with you now, please reach out to us.
I'm not sure if this sounds like the police already have information or at least leads on the fact that someone else was involved. They make it seem like they believe there was someone else involved, but I don't know what to make of it. So let me know what you think. What's your take on it? The police and Ashley Halsey have brought up hey, there could be potential accomplices. There could be more arrests coming. They brought that up multiple times. So once again, since they've already been in Sarah's phone, since they've already been in James Brock's phone and Kristen Brock's phone, and they've interviewed people, they may have a lead on something or a suspicion towards someone. Now, there's also been a lot of talk online about why Sarah would have done this, and there's some talk about Sarah's father. So people point to his social media, Donnell Patrick, and the fact that since the murders, Donnell has posted a lot of things about how he loves his daughter and will always stand by her. And I will say that I scrolled through his Facebook going back quite a while, and it seems like he's privated a lot of that now, but I went back quite a while before he did. And in my opinion, he's always posted things like that about Sarah, about his son, about being a father in general, how important it is to him, how much he loves his children, tries to do his best for them. You can tell that all of these adults involved probably didn't have the most easy lives, that they probably veered off their path every now and then, and they felt guilty about it later. They felt guilty about maybe the time or energy it took away from their kids. Donnell has said, hey, I'm not perfect. I've never been a perfect parent, but I'll always be there for them. So this I did not find to be odd. It's completely normal. However, since Sarah's arrest, both her maternal grandfather and her biological father, Donnell Patrick, have gone public, saying that they do not believe she is guilty of what she's been accused of. Sarah's grandfather, Dennis Nolan, who we already heard from early in the video, he talked to Fox 5, stating that he doesn't believe the Carroll County Police Department has enough evidence to prove Sarah did this. Nolan said that he was very surprised by Sarah's arrest because he'd been regularly speaking to the detectives on the case, and they had given him no indication that she was even a suspect, which, honestly, that makes complete sense. The police wouldn't tell Sarah's grandfather that they were looking at her for murder because then he might not be as honest about things that Sarah had said or done or the way she'd felt. He might have held back that information, not wanting to make her look guilty. Like if Sarah had said, I hate my stepfather, or I hate my mother. She gives my little sister all the attention and she never did that for me. I'm sick of them. I wish they were just dead. Like if she'd said anything like that, or if she had issues with her mother or her stepfather, then maybe Dennis would have not been as willing to share that with the police, knowing that they were looking at her as a suspect. I mean, that's obvious. Any family member would do that for their, 16 or 17-year-old relative, I think, if you love them. Even if it wasn't a conscious thing, you might unconsciously just try to make them look better and make things seem like they weren't as bad.
Do you believe she's the one who did this?
No. I think, to sum it up, really, the detectives, the best they could tell me was the evidence says that she's the only one who could possibly have done it. That says to me that there's no real evidence that says she did do it.
Did they tell you, beyond just she's the only one who possibly could have done it, what did they share with you about why they believe she's the one who is responsible for this?
Well, they never did share anything that said she was responsible, other than the fact that she's the only one, the evidence says she's the only one who could possibly have done it. Of course, they haven't revealed any of the evidence, because it's an ongoing investigation, and I understand that. But I know they were pressured to make an arrest, and I think this might have been premature. I don't think they needed to wait till the investigation was over. Sarah certainly wasn't going anywhere, but she's taking it very hard. She swears by her innocence. Yes, she called me from the jail the day after, of course, pleading for me to help her get out, and she was just very upset and saying, "Please help me." And there's not much I can do at this point. I don't know what else to say. I mean, she's always been a good kid. I've always liked Sarah. She was always very friendly, and she never really asked for anything. She was a very, to me, she was just an ideal child. She had just graduated from high school. She was very proud of that. She was working 2 jobs. She was doing very well, and I don't understand what could have ever, if she did do this, what triggered it.
If you, during that phone call, asked her if she had done it, what did she say?
I didn't ask her because it was just assumed she didn't do it. I wasn't going to accuse her of doing it. I just advised her to cooperate with the authorities, and we'd, wait and see and hopefully get her through this.
And she maintained her innocence on that phone call. She said she's not the person.
She said, "I didn't do it." She said, "Why are they doing this to me?"
But what did Sarah tell you about that night in conversations that you had?
Just that Jaylee, her daughter, went in to wake them up. She came back and Jaylee said she couldn't wake them up, and Sarah went in and found them, deceased. And she called 911, and that's all she said. She's never gone beyond that.
Dennis Nolan says he believes in Sarah's innocence, and Sarah herself is maintaining that she is innocent. But to me, it also doesn't sound like he is 1,000,000% sure it's not possible. You heard him. He said that if she did it, he just can't imagine why. He can't fathom what her reason would have been. Nolan was also asked why he thought Jaylee heard the gunshots, but Sarah didn't.
Well, I don't know. The house was very unusual, and her bedroom wasn't next to theirs, but Sarah claimed that the TVs were on. I know they were on in both rooms, and I don't know. It did seem unusual to me that she didn't hear the gunshots, but at 1:30 in the morning, she was asleep. I know I'm such a solid sleeper, that it possibly could have happened to me.
So once again, Dennis Nolan seems like he's being honest and not just dismissing every odd circumstance. He too found it odd that Sarah did not hear any gunshots. And when he was asked how Sarah's relationship was with her mother and James, Nolan said it was very good. They'd all just been there for Thanksgiving and everyone was happy and having a good time. He said his daughter Kristen had never mentioned anything about problems with Sarah, which she would have done because Dennis and Kristen were very close. Dennis was also asked if Sarah knew how to fire a gun, and he said, yeah, he was sure she did.
There were times they were here. I live out in the county, and we've taken, some of my guns and fired them off my deck and so forth. And I believe Sarah partaken some of that at times. Her brothers were more interested in it.
So if I'm the police, I might be going over to Dennis Nolan's house, grabbing his guns, seeing if any of them were missing or if any of them had been fired recently, seeing if they used the same ammo as the gun that killed James and Kristen. I'm sure the police have already done this, and if they haven't, they certainly did after he gave this interview to Law and Crime. Now, James Brock's niece, Kristen Dowda, also said something interesting during her interview with Hidden True Crime.
I can't speak a ton of it on her. I wasn't around her a lot, but I'm not here to tell a story. Every time I was around her, she was very sweet. She was very, open to talk to whoever was around. She struck me as a sweet girl. She did. But I didn't live in the home with her. And so, Jamie has said multiple times that you don't know the real Sarah. He didn't go into detail because, to be honest, when he would tell my mom that, she would be like, oh, Jamie, you've never raised a teenage girl before, and you're not supposed to think anything more of that. But he said multiple times, she's not the sweet Sarah that you guys see. She's not who she puts online. You don't know the real her.
So that's interesting, right? Because apparently James Brock had told his sister, and maybe had told some of his family members, Sarah's not who you think she is. She's not the sweet little girl she pretends to be. So Kristen Brock wasn't telling her father that there was any issues with Sarah, but it does appear that James was kind of, letting his family and his close, family and friends in on the fact that, Sarah may have been hiding something or may have put on a public face, but in private she was different. And this brings me to Sarah's biological father, Donnell Patrick, who since Sarah's arrest has publicly come out in support of her and her innocence. On July 16th, Donnell posted on his Facebook, quote, I just want to go on the record and say I know everybody is talking. Many people were talking about things that they don't even know. They are just talking and writing about stuff that is completely false. Taking pictures of me leaving church to go visit my daughter. If you have time to follow me around, walk up to me and talk to me. I will talk to you. My daughter is 100% innocent. If you want to talk to anybody about me and my daughter's relationship, come straight to me. I'm not hiding. I'm going to work and doing all the normal things that I have to support my son. Nobody knows my pain, but I choose to deal with it the way that I have to. I don't want all of attention like everybody else. February 21st, I had to come home and tell my son that his mother and his stepfather were dead. It was the hardest thing I ever had to do until I had to take my daughter to the sheriff's office. I did not turn her in. She voluntarily went there because of the warrants. She has nothing to hide. I'm not the type of person who gets on social media. I don't even pay attention to most of it. The only social media I have is Facebook, and it's been ruined by this entire situation. People are quick to judge when they don't even have any info. I have as much info as everybody else, so where are you getting your info from? If it's the media, then you all should know how the media portrays everything. It's not about the truth, it's about viewership. They will say anything. Some of the stuff that I have seen and some of the media outlets have reported good stuff. A lot of them have reported bad stuff without any facts, just assumptions, and talking to people that don't know nothing. My heart goes out to the Brock family and Kristen's. I will speak when it's time. Right now, I am trying to focus on my daughter, my children, not what everybody else is focusing on. Believe me, me. I'm living it. I don't have to see it. To everybody out there that has kids, to everybody out there that's paying attention, God bless each and every one of you. I hope you never have to go through an experience like this. As Pastor Ben said this Sunday, I'm ready. Bring it on, Goliath. End quote. And I totally understand what he's saying. He's the father of Sarah. He's the ex-husband of Kristen. He didn't ask for this. He didn't ask to be thrust into the public eye. He didn't ask for people to be making assumptions about, not only his daughter, but about him and his part in this and what he's writing on Facebook and having, strangers who don't know him in real life make assumptions about him based on, the very little they do know, whatever they can find publicly. It's got to be an incredibly, it is. I know that it is. It's an incredibly difficult situation. And, you don't wish it on your worst enemy. But Donnell is also one of the moderators on a Facebook page called I Stand with Sarah Grace Patrick. And he started this page. And at the time of filming this video, that page has 265 members. On that page, Donnell said, quote, I created this group to support my daughter who is being accused of a heinous crime that she did not commit. I created this group so that people can see the other side other than all the ugly things that people that don't even know her are saying, end quote. So this page was created on July 19th, and that same day a GoFundMe was posted for Sarah's legal fees. The goal is $9,000, and so far they've raised $200 with 2 donors donating $100 each. Donnell has stated on the Facebook page that he will be removing and banning anyone who does not stand up for Sarah, and he requested help getting admins on the page so they could help with the blocking and banning. And on that, I'm a little iffy because don't start a page to have an open Discord about the case and try to show your side if you're not willing to have, communication with people who don't believe you and who aren't on your side. That's your whole goal, is to try and to get people who think a certain way to think a different way based on what you have to provide, what information you have to provide. And if people come in and they are not automatically on Sarah's side, you should still be able to have open and honest and, hopefully healthy discourse with them and, try to change their minds or hear them out. So it's weird, it kind of just seems like they want an echo chamber over there. But one of the group members, Kathy Evett, posted a few photos she got from Kristen Brock's Facebook page. And she wrote that she had gone through Kristen's Facebook trying to find something that said Sarah was guilty, but, quote, the only thing I do find points to a cheating, abusive spouse, and here are just a few snapshots, but not one thing negative dealing with an out-of-control teen that made her fear for her or Jamie's life, but Kristen did fear for her life with Jamie, end quote. So the screenshots show 2 posts that Kristen made on September 30th, 2022. One reads, quote, hey, me and James are not together, not even friends. I don't really know him at all. I'm ashamed and hurt and embarrassed. Never again will you bring filth to my life. You play people like a fiddle, just not me anymore. Karma will be your king, King Brock, LMAO, end quote. The next one reads, quote, yeah, this hurts me, but it's gonna hurt her more. Jaylee, please pray for us and our safety. Please let me know if you see James Brock so you can warn me. He is trying to kill me, has been trying to get the house and child. Man, wasted tears, now huge fears, end quote. So someone replied to this and said, yeah, there were signs of problems in the house and the relationship in September of 2022, but they fast forwarded to the start of 2025 and it sounded like Kristen and James were born again, going to church, working things out. They'd gotten past their problems. And I agree. Like I said, there has been rumors and sort of reports that Kristen and James, one or the other or both, maybe struggled with drugs or some stuff happening, but they worked it out. And Kristen also posted a quote on September 27th, 2022 that said, quote, we communicate, we fix, we stay. That's maturity, end quote. So that was about a week after posting those first Facebook messages talking about how, she was afraid and that she and James weren't together. So clearly they got back together. I don't know what's happening. I'm not saying that nothing happened. I'm not saying that James Brock never did anything wrong. There's no perfect victim, right? There's no victim out there who we can say is an absolute angel and has never done anything wrong or hurt anybody in their lives. It still doesn't mean they deserve to be dead. And that brings us to an interview that Donnell Patrick did with Law and Crime that was posted on July 21st. Donnell claims that his daughter is innocent and the police have arrested the wrong person. He also gave more information and context into the relationship dynamics involved in this case. Donnell said that he and Kristen were married. They had 2 children together. They got divorced in 2019, and then Kristen married James Brock. When he first found out about Kristen and James' deaths, Donnell had posted a picture of himself and Kristen at their wedding. I feel that Donnell was clearly mourning both Kristen and James. There didn't seem to be any bad blood between any of them at the time of the murders, at least. He seemed to be genuinely sad and upset about the fact that they were gone. Donnell also talked about Sarah's interactions with the police, and he said the day before her arrest, Sarah was brought in to give a witness impact statement.
So the whole process was the day before they brought us in for a witness impact statement is what they were saying, and they were supposed to give property back. When we went in there to allow my daughter to talk, they interrogated her, and we were there for maybe 4 hours or so, and my daughter told them everything that they wanted to know multiple times. At the end of it, they started throwing pictures of her parents at us, her stepdad and her mom, deceased with gunshot wounds, and we stopped. As a father, she was considered a minor at the time, so I stopped the interview and told them that we were not going to talk no more, and they let us go. I asked them if they were arresting her, and they said no. And about 2 hours later, I guess it was, I received a call from them saying that I have to turn her in by 10 o'clock in the morning, or else they would send out the U.S. Marshals. So talked to my daughter. She was actually headed back to Alabama to be with one of her friends, and I talked to her, and the lady that lives with me that I'm renting from, she went straight to Alabama and picked my daughter up, and we spent the night together, and then 10 o'clock in the morning we complied. We didn't turn her in, but we came in and we did what they asked.
Now, I'd be lying if I didn't say that it was interesting that Sarah was planning to leave Georgia and spend some time in Alabama with a friend when all of this was going down. It doesn't necessarily mean anything, and I don't know if this was a common occurrence for her to go to Alabama or different states and, stay there for a week or 2 weeks or longer. But if Sarah sensed that she was being suspected and her immediate reaction was to get out of town, to leave the state, that piqued my interest a little bit.
If they say they have a mountain of evidence, that folder was pretty thin. That's all I will say. So they showed us a little bit of stuff, but I without attorneys around, I don't really want to speak of that evidence. So, but the evidence that they did show us did not add up at all.
Basically, Donnell is saying, I don't know what mountain of evidence they're referring to. The folder that I saw was pretty small, and I believe he's talking about the case file, which I guess he and Sarah would have been able to see during her interrogation, the case file with the evidence in it. But I mean, I feel like we all know the police aren't going to put every single piece of evidence in the case file that they're bringing in for the interrogation, right? I don't know. You couldn't possibly do that. And also, everything is digital now, so it may feel like a thin folder because you have sheets of paper that have, DNA results and Celebrite extractions and things. But what I did find interesting during this interview is that Donnell says on the morning of the murders, he was called by the police and he was asked to come and pick Sarah up. And he said at that time, he didn't even know the address of the home. He'd only been there twice, his whole life. He said he'd only been there during what he called the custody battle one time, and then another time when Kristen was arrested and he had to pick his children up from that home. Now, from this, we can garner 2 things. The relationship between Donnell and Kristen was not always so amicable, and apparently Kristen was arrested at her home at least one time that we know of at this point. We're going to hear a little bit more about that in a minute. Donnell says that he ended up going to the sheriff's station to get Sarah, and once he got there, the police took her back into an interview room along with him, her father, because she's a minor.
We just did what they asked us to do. I thought nothing of it. We didn't have any kind of clue of what the nature of the crime was. We talked to the detectives, and from there, they took a break in between, and they were like, "Would you like to go outside, get a breath of air, smoke a cigarette, or whatever?" And that's what I did. I came back into the room, and they were interrogating her without my permission. She was 16 at the time, and then from there, they let us go. We were there for quite a few hours. I know they were doing their job because that's what they're supposed to do.
Donnell said he had no indication at all that they were looking at Sarah as a suspect. He said the police weren't talking to him about that kind of stuff because he was not next of kin to the victims. He said he did not hear from law enforcement for 4.5 months after that. And during that time, Sarah lived with him. They were trying to get over the situation, move on with their lives. He said that it wasn't easy. There were a lot of tears, a few holidays that were really tough for them to get through, including Kristen's birthday. But he said that he and Sarah have a 100% open relationship. He knows everything about her. He knows about her boyfriends. He knows about the things she's done, and that Sarah was aware that if she got herself into trouble or needed help, she could always call and get, help from her father. He always had her back, no matter how bad it was. He said there was no indication to him that Sarah could have done this or that she was acting like anything other than a teenager who had lost her mother and was trying to process through it and live with it. Donnell Patrick was asked about the relationship between Sarah and her mother and stepfather, and how was that relationship?
She loved them. She loved them with all her heart. Me and Kristen, we got divorced 2019. She got with James in 2018. My kids lived with her for about a year, and then Kristen got in a little bit of trouble, and I went back to the courts during COVID and fought for custody, and I won full custody of both of my kids, and they came home with me. I went through a divorce, and after my divorce, I wasn't stable. I was working and everything like that, but Kristen and James had more to provide as far as at home, school systems and stuff like that. And it was my daughter's choice to go back and live with them. And I allowed it because I thought that things were getting better, and we went from there. And so Sarah's been with them, I think, since 2023.
So we hear from Donnell that Sarah loved her mother and James, and it had actually been her choice to continue living with them after Kristen got into that trouble and Donnell tried to get full custody of both his children. Donnell was asked if there was any issues at all that were happening in the home, any issues Sarah would have had with Kristen or James, problems in the house, anything at all that could have led to this.
I wouldn't say there was any kind of problem in the house. I think that she was just a normal teenager growing up, and when she didn't get her way, she called me, and when she didn't get her way with me, she called them. It's just typical teenager. There wasn't many problems in the house. I mean, other than sometimes, their punishments, was different than my punishments. But other than that, no, there was actually no problems in the home that I knew of at all.
And I do appreciate that he seems to be being fair. He's not going after Kristen or James. He's not trying to paint them as bad people. It seems Donnell is being genuinely honest and saying that to his knowledge, there were no real problems in the Brock household. Later in the interview, though, he's going to get a bit more candid and say things that could be seen as negative. Donnell was also asked about Sarah's TikTok account.
I know she was on TikTok and she was reaching out to people from what I understand. I'm not on TikTok. I'm not, as you can see, trying to even hook up this conversation with you. I'm not a very, very good with technology. But I know that she reached out to people on TikTok because she was wanting help, because we weren't getting answers from Carroll County. The only people that were getting answers was the next of kin, not my daughter, not me, not nobody. So for the last 4.5 months, we lived waiting for answers ourselves.
Donnell also spoke about Sarah's eulogy at the funeral, and he said it was absolutely not scripted.
My daughter came with that eulogy through her heart for her mom and James, because she thought she was doing the right thing speaking, and for people to hold that against her, I mean, come on. None of that was scripted. That was all real emotions. Real emotions. You know, she asked me permission to do it, and I gave her permission. And she's a very talented girl, you know, when it comes to being able to speak. I mean, we can sit at a table and she can say a blessing 10 times faster than most people. As far as the I'm sorry goes, you can sneeze on my daughter and she'll tell you I'm sorry. You know, she says I'm sorry to everything. It's not just to the eulogy, you know. Really, I mean, you can step on her toe and she'll tell you she's sorry she was in the way. That's just the type of girl she is.
Which is kind of what I said already. And if Sarah was that kind of personality, the I'm sorry at the funeral doesn't seem odd or out of place at all. We already talked about this. Donnell then was asked about the gunshots. How did Sarah's little sister hear the gunshots, but Sarah did not? And Donnell said that it was a constant thing for James's LVAD to go off, his alarm on the LVAD. He said that they'd gone out to dinner a few times, and the LVAD alarm would go off while they were out to dinner together. Donnell also said something, though, that I picked up on, and I want to see if you agree with me.
We went out to dinner before with them. I personally treated them to dinner a few times, and the LVAD would go off, and it could be something as small as blood pressure or just any little minor thing, and that LVAD would go off. To me, it wasn't too loud. And he would whatever the problem was, he would be able to regulate that and make it stop. If he couldn't make it stop, then it was a trip to the hospital. And there was a few trips to the hospital, but that machine, when it went off, it was almost normal to them. It was a part of their life at that point since he's had that. So I don't know much about LVAD and the heart problems that he had. Sure. But I do know that about the machine. Like I said, we were eating and it went off.
So remember that Sarah said before going to bed, 10 to 20 minutes before going to bed around midnight. So she went to bed around midnight, 10 to 20 minutes before that, she heard the alarm on James's LVAD machine going off for the first time. And was it still going off when she went to bed? How long was it going off for? This has not been revealed to us. Sarah hasn't told us. I'm sure the police have asked her. But she did say, I heard it going off 15 or 10 to 20 minutes before I went to bed, and I went to bed around midnight, and I heard it going off for the first time 10 to 20 minutes before I went to bed. So if she's saying for the first time, the inference is that it continued going off. And the sound of this alarm apparently also woke up Sarah's little sister, which meant it was going off for a while and it was loud enough to, be heard in their rooms. Donnell said the alarm wasn't too loud. He said when he heard the alarm, when they were out to dinner and other various times, the alarm wasn't too loud. So if the LVAD alarm wasn't too loud, but Sarah could hear it in her bedroom with her TV on and her little sister's TV on, would she not have been able to hear gunshots, which I assume would be much louder? And Donnell also said that James was able to regulate the LVAD and get it back working again. So Donnell's trying to seem like it's not that big of a deal. The alarm was going off. It happened all the time. And he was able to, mess with it and get it back working again. But if James couldn't get it back working again, then he'd have to go to the hospital. That is very clearly what Donnell said. So would Sarah not have been concerned when the alarm went off for the first time and then went off again? Would she not have been concerned when the alarm didn't stop going off? I mean, when James died, when his heart stopped due to being shot, the LVAD alarm would have gone off and kept going off. If it was a regular thing for them, and the alarm would often go off, and James would either get it back online or have to go to the hospital, wouldn't Sarah have been concerned if the alarm didn't stop going off from, 10 to 20 minutes before she got into bed, and then most likely continuing on, especially after he died? So if she went to sleep and someone else killed James and Kristen, the alarm would have gone off when his heart stopped. And if she could hear it before she went to bed in her room, would she not have been able to hear it after that? Or is this a suggestion that when the LVAD alarm was going off, this is when James Brock died, this is when his heart stopped, and that's why she was hearing the alarm? But if that's the case, the alarm would have kept going off. And how would she not have known? Wouldn't she have been concerned if it was going off and then as she's like getting in bed and going to sleep, it's still going off and James isn't, getting it back online or, calling an ambulance to get him to the hospital? Would she not have been concerned? It's very weird. Donnell was also asked about what theories Sarah might have about what had happened that night. If she wasn't the one who did it, who does she think did it? What does she think happened? And that's when he did start talking a little negatively about James and Kristen. And, this all could be the truth, what he's saying. It could be 100% accurate, what he is saying. But does it need to be said in this public platform like this is what I'm wondering. Because Donnell does seem to be very put out and rightly so agitated that because of what happened to Kristen and James, his private life has been cracked open for everyone to see and everyone's knows who he is and is questioning him and, making accusations and making, speculations and suppositions and all the Asians. But now he's kind of doing that here with James and Kristen.
I don't like to talk bad about them and their deaths and stuff like that because I know that families are hurting and stuff like that, but Sarah knows more than most people knows. And the only thing that she could think of was there was drug deals go wrong. They ripped somebody off a couple months before that, and Sarah thought that it could be that person. And when I say drugs, I'm not talking about like, the hardcore drugs or anything like that. From what I understand, it was over weed or something like that, but a substantial amount. And that's and she was telling the investigators that the whole time. And when we talked to the investigators, they said that they had already, talked to them and said that they counted them out. So, there was a incident that happened right before Valentine's. My son told me about because when the detective came to my mom's house where I was staying, he started asking about certain people, and there was a friend of theirs that actually pulled a gun on them right before Valentine's Day, and my son witnessed it. I can't say his name or anything like that, but when it all happened, my son, he brought that up to us that the family friend that had pulled a gun on James in the kitchen and they asked him to leave and make him go walk the dogs.
Now, like I said, we do know there have been rumors about James and Kristen being involved with drugs previously. This has not been confirmed by police, but from all accounts, we know they'd cleaned up their acts. They were starting to go to church. They didn't do things like that anymore, especially with James's health issues, right? He's, probably in late stage heart failure. He's already been hospitalized. He's got an LVAD machine keeping him alive while he waits for a heart. Can't imagine that he's, out there trying to do a ton of drugs. Donnell does say that this drug deal where allegedly Kristen and James ripped some people off was just concerning weed. It wasn't like hard drugs, but that the police had ruled these people out. And if that's true, if what he's saying is true, if the police did rule these people out, they most likely are not involved. The police most likely checked and verified these people's alibis, and this could be part of the geographical evidence that Ashley Halsey mentioned. It was after midnight. If these people said, hey, we were at home sleeping, or we were at this place or that place, it's likely their cell phones were checked to verify their location at the time of the murders. I'm sure people were questioned. Like if one guy said, hey, I was at home with my wife and we were watching Dexter or whatever, I'm sure they talked to the wife to make sure he was home. I'm sure they checked doorbell cameras and, like I said, phone pings and really just did their due diligence to make sure that this weed deal gone wrong didn't have anything to do with why James and Kristen were murdered. And then there's another story that he tells about a guy holding a gun on James and Kristen in the kitchen, and this was a friend of theirs, and he got mad, but it's like, still, once again, I'm sure that person was talked to. I'm sure the mountains of evidence that the police have do not point to that person, or that person would be behind bars. I just can't believe that the police would rule out such a viable alternate theory without making 100% sure that these people were accounted for, that they weren't anywhere near the Brock home on the night of the murders. Donnell was also asked about the murder weapon, whether it had been indicated to him if law enforcement had found it or not. And he said, no, not at all. They searched the property for days and they never found a weapon. Now, there's also a part in this interview where it sounds like someone is with Donnell, a woman, and she's kind of like giving him information, coaching him a little bit, like telling him what to say next. And you can hear her whisper to him at one point to remind him about what to say and where he's at.
Oh, not an arraignment. I don't know how. I've never been in trouble, so I don't know how this stuff works, but we're waiting for a preliminary bond hearing and stuff like that and going from there.
Did you hear it? She whispered preliminary bond. And I don't know if this is even relevant. It just stood out to me. The poor guy's probably exhausted. He's probably really worried about his daughter. He can't keep his head straight. This legal jargon is not his second language, so I completely understand that he might need some help staying on task and staying on point. But I don't know who that woman would be. Like, who is that woman? Donnell ends the interview saying that Sarah is a typical 17-year-old. She wasn't aggressive. She wasn't violent. She wouldn't hurt anyone. And then he was asked if Sarah had ever handled or shot a gun.
She's just your typical 17-year-old that does what 17-year-olds do. You know, she, like I said, she wouldn't harm nobody. She's never been in a fight in her life. She's never put her hands on anybody. You know? She's a good girl all around.
Did she know how to handle a gun?
Not that I know of. I mean, I know that she had shot a gun a few times, but not very often. I know that, judging by what I seen, it would take somebody to be trained at shooting a gun to do what was done to them. You know, and that's about all I can really say about that.
I know that the initially investigators had said there was no sign of forced entry on the house.
I have pictures of the door.
Do you believe that there was forced entry in the home?
Yes, sir, I do. I have pictures of the door. There's clearly like an indentation and almost like a crowbar mark or something like that. I know it didn't break the entire door down, but it's like my daughter said, they slept with the doors unlocked. You know, so I feel like whoever went in there, they knew what they were doing, because as you go through that back door, you're instantly in their room, basically. You turn left and you're in their room. And I feel like the mark on the door was because, say, if they did have the door locked, they were moving quickly. They wanted to get in as fast as possible, even if the door was unlocked or not. Obviously, they wasn't trying to make noise. They were trying to get in there and take care of what they were trying to take care of. Somebody assassinated them, and it was not my daughter.
So they did show a picture in this interview of the door, one I assume Donnell took, and you can see the door is like a little marked up, but I have no way of knowing if it looked like that before, and apparently neither does Donnell, since he didn't even know the address and he'd only been to that house twice in several years. The door in general to me looks banged up. It's not just like one pry mark. It kind of looks like it's been through it. And Donnell followed this up by saying that Sarah said they slept with the doors unlocked. So if the doors were unlocked, why would someone have to use a crowbar or a pry bar or anything to like get that door open? I would be interested to hear from the police if the other doors in the home were locked that night or left unlocked. And I would also be interested to know if they did a gunshot residue test on Sarah's hands, because that would be pretty damning if the test came back positive. This also goes for the collection of any of Sarah's clothes in the home, testing them for GSR gunshot residue. Obviously, I don't know if she would know that she should change her clothes because the residue would be on her clothes. They should have checked maybe the hampers, her drawers, her closets, just to see if any of that clothing had gunshot residue on it, or if Sarah is the one responsible and she was able to get rid of the gun before calling 911, I'm sure that she took whatever clothes she was wearing and got rid of that as well, including potentially any gloves she had on when and if she shot the gun. I don't know what to think about all of this, but it is clear to me that Donnell Patrick loves his daughter. He believes his daughter. He will continue to support her and try everything in his power to make sure she gets a fair trial, which she should have. She should have a fair trial, and she should have all the support that she can get. I have no issue with Donnell being the face of Sarah's team. He is her father, and I imagine that most parents would do the same thing. You love your kid. You don't want to believe this about them. Anytime we're dealing with somebody we love or have strong feelings for, it's hard for us to accept negative or bad things about them. We want to make excuses, or we want to be a little bit delusional and pretend that it's not possible. I do want to point out that Donnell said he and Sarah were close. She told him everything, right? As close as you believe you are to your children, and as much as you think you have a completely transparent relationship and they tell you everything, all kids have secrets, especially teenagers. All teenagers have things they've done or said or thought that they're too afraid to tell their parents, especially if they're close to the parents, especially if they respect their parents, because they don't want their parents to see them differently. This is something they might be ashamed of, and they're like, I can never tell this to my father because we are so close, and he trusts me and loves me, and he sees me a certain way as this good kid, and I don't want to tell him this thing that would make him see me differently. So at this point, that is where we stand, and this is all we know. And where do I stand? Well, as I mentioned in the intro, Sarah's behavior to me is very reminiscent of another case. If Sarah Grace Patrick's TikTok tributes, emotional posts, and desperate pleas for attention following the murder of her mother and stepfather struck you as unsettling, you're not alone. And as I watch this case unfold, I'm reminded of another teenager who wrapped herself in public grief, only to later be revealed as a central figure in the very tragedy that she appeared to mourn. And that teen was Michelle Carter. In 2014, Michelle Carter was just 17 years old when her friend and occasional romantic interest, Conrad Roy, took his own life in his truck in Fairhaven, Massachusetts. What the world didn't know at that time, but what we would later find out in shocking court transcripts, was that Michelle had not only encouraged Conrad to take his own life for months, but she was on the phone with him as he died. At one point, when he got scared and reportedly got out of the truck, she told him to get back in. He killed himself with the carbon monoxide in the truck. She told him to get back in. She was like, don't chicken out. You got this. You've been talking a big game about how you're going to do this. Now you're going to do it. She told him to get back in. And yet, in the hours, days, and weeks following Conrad's death, Michelle Carter went into what can only be described as public grief mode. She messaged Conrad's mother, attended his wake, posted heart-wrenching tributes to him online, framing herself as his grieving girlfriend, even though they hadn't seen each other in person for over a year, and they'd been very on and off. She organized a softball fundraiser in his memory, initiated a campaign for mental health awareness, and sent emotional texts to friends telling them that she had tried to save him. All the while, she was also texting others in private, admitting she could have stopped him but didn't. And she was trying to get attention from all these girls who had kind of been mean girls to her and hadn't really been very nice to her. They kind of ghosted her because she was annoying, okay? They kind of were ghosting her. They didn't want to have anything to do with her. But then after Conrad died, she used his death to get back in with them, because what were they going to say? She's messaging them. She's like, I'm so sad. My boyfriend died. I'm heartbroken. How can I get over this? And they're, maybe they were a little bit of a mean girls before, but now they're just like, well, what are we supposed to do with this? We can't ghost this girl now. She needs people. She lost her boyfriend. Her boyfriend took his own life. How terrible is that? And so they gave her the attention that she wanted because of his death, right? So the discrepancy between Michelle's public persona as the devastated girlfriend and the private reality revealed through digital evidence is what ultimately led to her being charged and convicted of involuntary manslaughter. And that's what makes the Sarah Grace Patrick situation so haunting. Because just like Michelle, Sarah built a narrative online, a highly curated, emotionally saturated digital identity as this grieving daughter. She cried on camera. She clutched her mother's t-shirt. She posted cryptic captions about trauma and healing. She reached out to creators and said things like, this would be a big hit, suggesting a media strategy that feels calculated, not cathartic. it's not just the grief that's unnerving, it's the performance of grief, the curated pain, the subtle self-positioning as a tragic figure at the center of attention, the using viral, TikTok trends, trying to get seen. In both cases, we're left wondering, is this the face of a victim or someone manipulative and nefarious, hiding in plain sight? I don't know. There's people out there that are like, Sarah's innocent. The police jumped the gun. Everyone's jumping the gun. I don't think so. I think she did this. I wish it wasn't true. I wish that it wasn't true. But my gut is telling me that Sarah Grace Patrick did this to her mother and her stepfather. At the center of this case is a brutal and heartbreaking truth. 2 people were taken from this world in the most violent way imaginable, and the ripple effects of that violence have shattered an entire family. If what the police believe happened is true, understand this. Sarah allowed her 5-year-old sister to find the bodies of her parents. That is beyond chilling. It's diabolical. It's, I can't. Listen, if what the police is saying is true, if Sarah shot her mother and stepfather to death in their bed, and then set her little 5-year-old sister up to find the bodies so that the sister could then wake Sarah up and Sarah could call the police. I don't know. That's psychopathic. I don't know. It's just, how could you do that to a kid? That's going to affect her forever. That's going to never leave her. It's never going to leave her brain. That's lifelong trauma. As Sarah Grace Patrick awaits trial, the community is left grappling with questions that obviously don't have easy answers. Could a teenager really commit such a cold and calculated act? We know a teenager could. We have multiple instances where teenagers and even younger children have committed acts of violence against their family members. Or is Sarah a misunderstood girl caught in a perfect storm of trauma, suspicion, and a police narrative that hasn't yet been fully revealed? What we do know is that the performances we see online, even those dripping in grief, can sometimes mask something far darker, or they could be the cries of someone truly lost, grieving in real time, unable to express it in a way that makes sense to the rest of us. Time will tell, and hopefully justice, whatever that might look like, will rise from the confusion and pain left behind. I think she's involved. I do. Until we know more, though, we'll keep following the evidence and honoring the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it may be. And I will follow these different updates coming out, and I will keep you all updated in the process. So that's all we have. Let me know what you think about this case. Oh, before we go, I want to tell you that my coffee company that I own with Derek Levasseur, my host on Crime Weekly, the podcast, we have come out with our first flavored coffees besides our Christmas flavor, which was a peppermint bark, and it was delicious. But we've come out with our first staples to the criminal coffee universe, flavored coffees. We've got my personal favorite, hazelnut. It's so good. We've got French vanilla. So French vanilla and hazelnut are the new criminal coffee flavors. Hazelnut is my personal favorite. The French vanilla is amazing. They both taste so true to real life. The vanilla, the hazelnut, the nuttiness, the slight sweetness, the warmth of the vanilla. I love these. We have it in whole bean and ground. I always get whole bean. It just lasts longer. It stays fresh longer. And I can give it as gifts for like Christmas and stuff without having to worry that, in a couple weeks, it'll be stale. So I like the whole bean. You can get a grinder. We also have those, but check those out right now. I highly suggest if you like coffee, check them out, at least one of these flavors, hazelnut. Okay, thank you guys so much for being here. Please don't forget to let me know what you think about this case in the comment section. It is a wild one for sure. And I think it's going to be split. I don't think that everybody feels the same way as I do. I really don't. I think that there's people out there who genuinely think that there's a chance Sarah did not do this and she's the wrong person. But I really, once again, are the police going to do all this to arrest a 17-year-old? Like, wouldn't they look at any other option first before they arrest the 17-year-old and potentially put themselves in like position for a lawsuit or to just look really stupid and inept? Wouldn't they rather do their due diligence? I mean, it took 6 months for them to arrest her. I'm sure they did their due diligence. I can't believe that they're just completely 100% wrong, but I think that this is going to be more evenly split than other cases. So let me know what you think in the comment section. Don't forget to like this video if you liked it, share it if you think it's worth sharing, subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you very, very soon. And until then, stay kind, stay beautiful, and stay safe. I love you so much. Bye.